Mike Gallagher.
When the history books are written, they're going to write about a guy named Charlie Kirk, and I'm not exaggerating. What a story this is. What a story he is. Of course, he's the founder and president of Turning Point USA. He's the host of the Charlie Kirk Show here on the Salem Media Group. Turning Point USA is a movement featuring many hundreds of thousands of young people. It's an organization dedicated to identifying, organizing, and empowering young people to promote the principles of free markets and limited government. He's got a new book, 4 books. I mean, Charlie, I have to admit, I get really annoyed. I've got socks older than you, and you've now written 4 books. Your 4th one, Right-Wing Revolution, How to Beat the Woke and Save the West. It's sure to be a big bestseller. Welcome back to the Mike Gallagher Show. I mean, heaven forbid I get to shake your hand in Detroit last week. I mean, you're sequestered. You got all these thousands and thousands of screaming fans, but I was there, and what a massive event that was. You have to be thrilled with the latest Turning Point Action event that took place featuring President Trump last weekend in Detroit. How you been?
Well, thank you, Mike. I'm great. You just got to text me. I knew you were there, and I got my wires crossed, and but no, you're
no,
the
no,
best,
no, no,
Mike.
no, no. I wasn't going to bother you. No, I was not. Listen, you had your hands full because, man, oh man, I mean, I wish everybody could spend 5 minutes soaking up the atmosphere of a Turning Point event. You do these all year long, and that to me is pretty astounding because the work, the planning, the effort that has to go into one of these on-site events must be a 24/7 operation.
Oh, it is, and we have the best events team in the entire movement that puts these on. And right before that, by the way, we had our Young Women's Leadership Summit in San Antonio, Texas. We had Donald Trump previously in Arizona about a week before that. So we've been really blessed and really busy, Mike. And now it's book launch week. So went straight from planning the event to now launching our new book. And so just really thrilled, really thankful, and we're making a big difference. And we're hiring hundreds of full-time people on the ground in Arizona and Wisconsin to go chase ballots, register voters, and to engage low-propensity voters where it matters most to get Donald Trump back in the White House in November.
The timing of your book is perfect because everywhere I go, for example, last evening we had a big station event in Orlando, and hundreds of people came out, Carl Jackson and I and Christopher Hart and others, Congressman Corey Mills, and everybody says, how do we win? How do we beat the woke? I mean, everybody saw the James O'Keefe video this week of a big Disney executive saying they don't hire white males. And so here's what I think is going to be, and I can't wait to crack open this book, Right-Wing Revolution, How to Beat the Woke and Save the West. I guarantee you've put a lot of thought into the method, the process that every ordinary American can follow in order to win. Because, Charlie, let's face it, in many ways, we're losing. This country's broken right now, and we've got it. We need a revolution badly.
That's right. And we talk about trying to change the mentality and change the attitude. That is the first thing we need. And we are losing at almost every single turn. However, we talk about a couple instances in the book, Right-Wing Revolution, about where we've won over the last 20 years. For example, when it comes to Second Amendment protections and firearm rights, how did we do that? The courts and the Supreme Court, how did we do that? Abortion and reversing Roe versus Wade. So there have been a couple of victories actually over the last couple of decades. And the lesson that we derive in the book Right-Wing Revolution is it took an attitude shift. You think about the pro-life movement in particular, and I'm very, very pro-life. It took us not caring about what the bad guys would say. It took us organizing relentlessly. It took us having a base strategy and doing public displays of support, regardless of the nastiness they throw at us. It required lots of money over many decades, and we were ultimately successful. In addition, Mike, you look at the Supreme Court strategy, very similar. And so, we at Turning Point Action are doing our work on the ground, and it's paralleled to what we're talking about in the book, which is over the last couple of decades, the woke, which is a mixture of the Marxists and the nihilists and the postmodernists, they have been incredibly successful in capturing and swallowing and enveloping our core institutions. And so we address in the book where they come from, where their vulnerabilities actually are. For example, they're a very fragile movement. They hate the truth. They tend to be actually rather lazy despite the fact of how successful they've been. And I will say, though, and this is a tough lesson for many people in your audience to hear, over the last 40 years, they have wanted it more than us. And I know that people will disagree, but it is just true. They have worked harder, they have spent more, they have sacrificed more. And it's understandable, though, because our side is more worried about their local church, raising their kids, starting a business, other than taking over the government and turning it into a Marxist dystopian hellscape. So we go into that in great detail in the book. It is an action-oriented book. People can find it at 45books.com, and it's called Right Wing Revolution.
And it's out now, so please go to 45books.com to order this, because I can't wait to get my hands on it. That's because people are yearning for some marching orders, some talking points, some ways that we can get this country back. Now, one powerful way we're going to get the country back is to win, and win big on November 5th. You've addressed election integrity everywhere. I address it all the time. Everywhere I go, people say, we're worried. What could happen? What are they going to do? If it's really close, if it's a close election, what happens? And to me, Charlie, and maybe I'm oversimplifying this, there's a simple solution. We've got to make it too big to rig, like President Trump uses that for expression over and over again. We have to flood the ballot box. We better make darn sure that your neighbors, your friends, your family, everybody's registered, because we should win ostensibly, but we could not. Can you address that a little bit? Am I oversimplifying things, or do you agree with me?
No, that's right. And look, there are a lot of elements to fraud, but let me tell you what the greatest fraud is in the 2024 election. The greatest fraud will be the American people who agree with us not voting. That is the greatest fraud, Mike. And we need to repeat that over and over again. I can't tell you how many people I run into, and it's horrifying, that agree with us, that share our worldview, that share our values, that have not registered to vote and do not plan to vote in November. That's terrifying. And I am more of the cautionary guy in the room. Everybody thinks we're going to win big. Again, if it was all a fair election, that's absolutely true. I'm actually less worried about how they're, quote unquote, going to do their rigging. I am more concerned, actually, Mike, about how we have traded low propensity voters for high propensity voters. This is the buried lead of the Trump movement right now. And it is very exciting, but it's also very concerning. It's exciting to all of a sudden say, wow, Donald Trump can draw a crowd of a couple thousand people in the Bronx. But do you know who he's doing worse with, Mike? He's doing worse with baby boomer voters. He's doing worse with senior citizen voters. And that is not an accusation. That's not a criticism for the baby boomers in your audience. There's plenty that still support him. But he is losing with the baby boomer vote according to many, many polls across many states and many disciplines. And so the baby boomers vote in huge numbers. They vote in massive numbers. Low propensity voters don't vote in as high numbers. So our whole focus needs to be, number one, trying to win back some of those higher propensity voters that used to really be very Republican, but for whatever reason have drifted towards Biden. And secondly, trying to go and register and get out as many low propensity voters as we can. This is the task in front of us, Mike. It's very, very scary if we do not win. And look, you're watching footage right now on the Salem News Channel about these long lines back in 2020. All things being equal, if we drive high turnout, I think we are going to be ultimately successful. However, I don't know if we have the machine or the apparatus to be able to do that yet. We're trying to build that at Turning Point Action, but we have a lot of work to do.
Well, you're doing the work, and you know how deeply I admire you. Congratulations on all that's going your way. And hey, and by the way, Charlie, you got another big event. The next big Turning Point event is December, right? Is that going to be the biggie?
Well, we have a big one, but we have a couple over the summer, and so we don't want to forget that. We have something called the Believer Summit in July in Palm Beach, which will be a rallying for Christians and pastors, and then nothing to the size or the scale that you saw in Detroit. But starting in early September, almost every single day, we're doing Get Out the Vote, we're doing registration, and I am doing the most ambitious campus tour in Turning Point history. That's right. I will be visiting the most campuses I have ever visited in a short period of time, starting in early September to early November.
He's a force of nature, fearless. Charlie, keep fighting the good fight. It's great seeing you, my friend.
God bless.
Talk to you again.
You're
So
a great
go
man.
to 45books.com to order his book. The great Charlie Kirk joining us here on the Mike Gallagher Show.